Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And a very good day to all of you joining us from different parts of the world. Indeed, it's an honor and pleasure for me personally, as well as the Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance and its partners, Hijaz, to welcome you, to warmly welcome you all to our series of Islamic Finance Talks in 2025. This is the third Islamic Finance Talks that we are organizing under the Islamic Finance Talk series for the year 2025. And we are very pleased to bring this together to yourselves. BIBF is the training arm of the Central Bank of Bahrain as the premier provider of financial education and training in the region. We provide education in business and finance through our undergrad, postgrad, degree programs, professional qualifications, as well as our own programs, both short-term, short training programs, as well as extensive long professional qualification. And we do that through our 6 centers of excellence. These centers of excellence are banking and finance, where we cover all the banking and finance related courses, professional courses, short courses, and bespoke training programs. We have our Islamic Finance Center, which we represent, the Insurance Center, Leadership and Management, and Digital Transformation and Project Management. For more details on BIBF and the training programs and the capacity building programs that we offer, I highly recommend you to visit our website on bibf.com. So that is Bravo India Bravo Freddy.com. My name is Dr. Rizwan Malik. I head up the Islamic Finance Center here at BIBF, which is one of the oldest center that has been established at the center. BIBF is about 40-year-old organization and plays an instrumental role in the development of capacity, not just in Bahrain, but the region and globally through our various partnerships that we have formed. Now, for this series of events, BIBF is proud to host this Islamic Finance Talk series where we discuss important issues and emerging topics within the global Islamic economics, banking, and financial landscape. The aim through these talks is to foster meaningful dialogue, facilitate the exchange of knowledge, and explore the evolving landscape of the industry. As we embark on this journey, we hope to inspire innovation, promote best practices, and contribute to the sustainable development of this very dear industry that is Islamic economic, banking, and finance industry. Today's talk is on one of the most important area, that is a pillar of Islam, and we are talking about zakah. Understanding zakah is very, very important. In fact, it's very instrumental as it is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Yet many Muslims find it challenging to grasp its implication fully. The event aims to clarify how to calculate and distribute zakah effectively, inshallah. With the emergence of new investment opportunities such as cryptocurrency and other asset classes, understanding how zakah applies to all of it is very important and is crucial for our understanding. Every year we think about how to calculate zakah, and we hear a lot of scholars talking about it. The idea of this particular event is to clarify a number of these issues, questions that you may have, and we will be very happy to inshallah answer the questions as well. So today's topic will cover the spiritual and economic impact of zakah, how to accurately calculate zakah on different asset classes, including gold, silver, crypto assets, and other alternative assets. And we'll cover some relevant industry standards that is issued by IOFI, for example. We'll also look at some of the common misconceptions and mistakes to avoid. And then, of course, we'll give some examples on how to practically calculate them. So it's a unique opportunity to enlighten ourselves on a topic that is important, not just for our investments, but to our religion as well. Whether you are an individual, investor, or part of an organization, the event is designed to equip you with the knowledge you need to fulfill your zakah obligations confidently. We have very learned scholars with us to share their insights, inshallah, on the topic. and we hope that all of us will benefit from their presence and the session that we will have together with yourselves. So without before any further ado, and before I hand it over to our expert speakers, we are very pleased to have the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Product Officer of Hijaz with us, Brother Muzammil Dedi, who will actually formally welcome you all to this talk series, inshallah. And before any further ado, let me pass it to Muzammil to take it forward, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Rizwan. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of today's event, and to see so many people on the call today attending what should be a very insightful session. As Dr. Rizwan mentioned, it's timely in Ramadan, Zakat. There's a natural connection there between these two topics, and obviously coming from a Western background myself from Australia, you see a lot in terms of misunderstandings, miscalculations, and people are well intentioned, but it's always good to be well educated about how to attend to this particular subject matter. So it's very commendable the work and initiatives that the BIBF roll out in this region and more broadly as well. And I'm sure today's session, like all the other sessions, will be very informative and insightful and beneficial. In terms of Hijaz, obviously we're a very proud partner with the BIBF for the talk series for this year, and we found that there's so much going on in the world of Islamic finance, domestically, globally, in the region as well. Opportunities everywhere, and for an organization like Hijaz, we are the largest provider of Islamic finance in Australia, and are now a multinational global entity with a large asset management offering, lending offerings, fintech as well. We offer a whole suite of solutions, and our strategy has largely been to target Muslims in non-Muslim countries. So like Australia, the UK, more broadly across Europe, North America, and we also have a presence in the Middle East, in MENA, in Bahrain. I'm coming from the Bahrain office today. And there's opportunities everywhere, and the areas that we look to capitalize on more specifically are around asset management. So we have a suite of ETFs that we have listed on the Australian Exchange, London Exchange, Irish exchanges, and other exchanges around the world. And we manage a portfolio of over $3 billion in assets more broadly. Our lending solutions are very comprehensive, ranging from car financing, home financing, business finance, and other assets. And our fintech offering is quite unique as well, where we have what we call the Halal Money app. So it essentially is an app that captures all the different facets of a Muslim person's financial requirements, ranging from their transactional bank account through to investments, lending solutions, and everything in between, and in the one app solution. So the app solution is currently available in Australia, and will be launched, inshallah, in the coming weeks and months in across MENA as well as across Europe as well. So that's a high-level summary, a high-level overview of Hijaz, who we are, what we do. I'm sure the team at BIBF can share with you our contact details as well. If you have any questions, any queries, any inquiries, please feel free to reach out. But I won't hold up the proceedings any longer. Allow our esteemed scholars to come online and deliver today's session, which I look forward to attending as well. And thank you very much for your time, and Dr. Rizwan for the opportunity to present and to partner. And wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Brother Muzammil. I think that was very well covered, and we thank you, Hijaz, for partnering up with BIBF on this very industry building initiative that is very, very important. I congratulate Hijaz for setting up the office in Bahrain as well, and inshallah for its wider MENA operations as well, inshallah. And inshallah, we understand you're looking to grow, inshallah, in this and serve the niche market that is otherwise not served by the other banks and financial institutions. So, wish you all the best, inshallah, with that. Thank you very much. And with that, I have the pleasure of, inviting, to the virtual podium. We have with us two very distinguished scholars, and these are Shaikh Dr. Faizal Monjoo and Shaikh Ibrahim bin Muhammad. Shaikh Faizal Monjoo, just very briefly. I mean, we don't have time for long bios, and he needs he needs a long introduction. But he's a very accomplished academic lecturer who has served at various universities and continues to advance knowledge in various aspects in the Islamic economics, banking, and finance industry. He is a Sharia scholar advising leading Islamic financial institutions. He sits on a number of Sharia boards as well as on a number of subcommittees that have been set up by IOFI. He is also a lawyer specializing in corporate law and law of succession with a specialization in wealth management. More interestingly, he's the director of Minara Academy, which is an e-learning platform, and Minara Consulting. So very, very thankful for his time, and a teacher to myself, and a very knowledgeable scholar. So very thankful to very thankful to you to spare your time. And we also have Sheikh Ibrahim Ibn Muhammad, who is also a Sharia scholar with a master's in Islamic banking and finance. He lectures on fiqh muamalat and its application in contemporary finance, and contributes regularly on these topics in the form of fatwas and articles. Sheikh is the director of Lottery Sharia Consultancy, a UK-based Sharia consultancy firm specializing in Islamic finance and Islamic fintech and Islamic estate planning. So very, very honored to have both of you distinguished scholars with us to share your insights and clarify some of the misconceptions on a very, very important pillar of Islam, that is zakah zakah, and in particular, we're talking about zakah on investments. So, without any further ado, I would pass on to you, Sheikh Faizal, to start. Maybe you can, share your slides, and inshallah, take it forward from here. For all our audience, just for your information, we have kept the chat tab off. The reason is that there's a lot of questions and comments that come in, and at the end we lose sight of the questions that we have to answer. So if you have any questions in particular to our mashayikh, please use the Q&A tab that is there on your bar on your screen, and we will we will dedicate the time towards the end to answer some of these questions, inshallah. If you miss any part of the session will inshallah be uploaded on BIBF's YouTube channel as well. So you can always go back and refer to any of the part that you've missed, or if you would like to refresh your memory later on, inshallah. So let's keep Q&A towards the end. If time permits, we will allow also questions by voice. But for now, if you can ask, put your questions in the Q&A tab, and we'll come to them, inshallah, later on. So with that, I pass it on to Sheikh Faizal to take us forward, inshallah. I welcome you, both Sheikh Faizal and Sheikh Ibrahim, to this virtual series of Islamic finance talks at BIBF.
Jazakallah, Dr. Rizwan. I'm very grateful to BIBF to facilitate that. May Allah reward you in this world and the hereafter. And thank you also for all those who are attending, because you are sacrificing your time. May Allah reward you for that in this world and the hereafter, and make this a means of salvation in the hereafter as well. Before starting, one of the books that baffled me when we talk about zakat, for those who are very academically inclined, is when I read the book, the doctoral thesis of Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi, alayhi rahmah. It was really fascinating when he raised a complication in the field of zakat. We cannot make justice to this topic today. We'll try to highlight some burning issues. That's the best we can do, because time is limited. So what we are going to do today is, number one, we're going to give you a brief overview of zakat, then understanding the concept of nisab. After that, what are the zakatable assets: gold, silver, articles of trade, shares, pensions, very, very important, and crypto assets. Then who are the people who will receive it, calculating zakat, and then, of course, time permits, we'll delve in some questions. Okay, what is zakat? Okay, literally, zakat means to purify. Okay, tazkiyah, zakat. So zakat is one of the pillars of Islam, as you know. But in Sharia, what zakat really means, each word here, I'm going to explain it a bit. It's very important to understand that this is an ibadah, because many people are of the view that if you pay tax, you don't pay zakat, or if you pay zakat, you don't pay tax. No, this is a worship. It's not tax. We got to clear this from our mind. And now what is happening in countries like Malaysia, where there are some provisions that when individuals, when they pay zakat, it will be deducted from their tax, but this is not the topic today. But you have to understand that it is a worship, it's an ibadah, which refers to the annual duty of a Muslim. It's not meant for non-Muslim. Again, it's an ibadah who possesses a zakat threshold, what's called nisab. We're going to elaborate on this, and to pay 2.5% of certain types of wealth, not all wealth, and also to specific categories of recipients. So let's repeat that. Number one, it is an ibadah imposed on Muslims to pay annually a certain percentage, if they have nisab, on their specific types of wealth, not all type of wealth, and that goes to specific categories of recipients. We can't give it to any Tom, Dick, and Harry, because this is in Surah At-Tawbah, it's binding, and we got to observe that. It is also a means to purify one's wealth, tathir. If you look at the Quran lays a lot of emphasis. This is the main reason the Quran says we purify the person, his heart and his wealth, by distributing a prescribed amount to the poor as a fundamental worship. Very important to understand the spiritual dimension of zakat, right? Because man has two main problems, hubbud jah and hubbud dunya. Man loves this world, loves money, and he loves to be respected, to be loved, to be honored, etc. So these are two qualities in man. So zakat brings that equilibrium, not only amassing, but also has the quality of giving. So zakat is an act of worship, not a fine, as we said. Because once we give the money in public, like the Quran says, it circulates the money in the economy, what we call the velocity of money in the economy. And that has a dynamic stimuli, and it will increase the GDP as well. So though the Quran talks about tathir, it cleans the heart of the person giving it, but also at the sideline, it has a big economic impact as well. It contributes toward the GDP. There are research done on that, but we cannot go in details. One should look forward to paying zakat, as it will be a means of purification, blessing, and great reward. I always say that 2.5% is the minimum you pay. In Ibn Majah, there is a hadith to this effect that besides zakat, there are other rights of the poor in your wealth. And the Quran also mentioned that وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقُّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. You know, we have to understand giving zakat is a pleasure. Like it comes in hadith, the hand who gives is better than the hand who receives. So we must give zakat wholeheartedly. It is an ibadah, and also we are helping society to move forward. When a difference of opinion occurs when it comes to zakat, the more cautious approach will be taken into consideration to ensure the duty of zakat is fulfilled with certainty. So the underpinning principle that we use, that which is most beneficial for the poor, will be applied when working with zakat. And I want to lay emphasis on that again. It's not a favor we are doing to the poor. The poor is doing us a favor by accepting it, because we have to discharge that responsibility. It reminds me of the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, when they were collecting zakat in Egypt. They didn't have poor people. Therefore, they wrote to the Emir what to do. The Caliph, he said, free the slave with it. So this is a barakah in zakat. And what I'm trying to say here, at times, you may not have poor people in your surrounding. Therefore, it's a big favor. They are taking it from us. Don't look down upon them. Now, what are the conditions for zakat? First, there are the conditions on the wealth itself. And secondly, the conditions of the payer. Regarding the conditions of the wealth, it must be a wealth that got the capacity, the inherent capability to grow, productive, right? Like your trading stock. Then it must reach a threshold that we're going to discuss the nisab in a few minutes' time. And number three, it must be in ownership for one lunar calendar, okay? So these are the three things. The zakatable asset must have the capability to grow, it must reach a nisab, and you must own it for 1 year. Regarding the person paying, he must be sane, that is legally he's bound, he has taklif, that you could say, right? Legal capacity. Number 2, he must be a Muslim. And number 3, he must be an adult according to Hanafis. Jamhur say even for children you pay, right? So that is, I'm not going to go in the fiqh debate here, just very briefly, okay? Now, when we talk about productive wealth, there are 4 categories that have been highlighted by the fuqaha in the light of Quran and Sunnah. Number 1, the cash. When we talk about cash, we talk the cash in hand you got at home, maybe under your mattress, in the bank, any currency you have, because maybe you use Bahraini BD, you went for Umrah, you got some riyals with you, that also will be considered as cash. The receivables due to loans or investments. So you invest on stock market, you're getting some dividend, that dividend is payable. Or people owe you, that also you got to factor it into it. Number 2, gold and silver. Now, gold and silver, as you know, since immemorial time, man has been attracted to gold and silver. So this is why the law of supply and demand is there. If you read the news, you will see countries are fighting to increase their gold reserves. So gold has always been demand. So whichever form or usage they are. Now, this is very, very important. The Hanafi position is if you are using it or you don't use it, you pay. Jamhur says if you are using it, then you don't pay. Okay. Then gold and silver plated items will not be zakatable, right? Number 3, you weigh the item, find the price for gold and silver per gram, and then you calculate the price. We'll go in detail with that. Sheikh Muhammad will explain that in more detail later on. The third category, if you are doing business, articles of trade, anything you purchase to resell. It can be a land, a house, a car, whatever. You have that intention ab initio that you will sell it. So it is similar to a trading stock. Then you got livestock. I'm not going to go in details here. This is where you're doing farming and so on, because it become more complicated. There's no time to go how much you pay on camels, how much you pay on harvest, how much you pay on goats. We don't have time to go into those details. Now, understanding nisab, as I said, there's a minimum amount that you must possess for 1 year, then you will pay zakat. So nisab is the amount of wealth which makes one liable for zakat, and therefore there are 2 ways to calculate the nisab. One is on gold. Now again, this is AOIF standard, 85 grams of gold. The Hanafi is 87 point something. So we are just going with the most known in the market right now. I'm not going in the furu'i masail. So if you have a property, zakatable property, which is worth 85 grams of gold, which is technically in classical term 20 mithqal, we checked it yesterday. As per yesterday, it was $8,324.90. The second one, silver. Again, this one is 595 grams of silver, according to Jamhur, which is the majority of ulama, which is 200 dirhams. And you can see the ratio here. The ratio is 1 to 10. Okay. And if you convert that into dollars, as per yesterday, the rate of yesterday is $660.5. Now, that brings a problem. In the time of Umar bin Khattab, it was okay. There was a balance. They were using both. But now, due to global demand for those commodities, there is a variation. The ratio has been disturbed. It's no more as we would expect it to be. So in the past, either you will use the silver or the gold. Nowadays, this becomes an issue, which one you're going to use. So which nisab to use? If you own only gold, then go by the gold nisab. That is what the ulama tells us. And if you own mixed zakatable assets, you go by the silver nisab. Like in UK, for example, this is a tendency by most ulama. And for articles of trade, we use a gold nisab as per AOIF guidance. So we have 2, either gold or silver. If you have many gold, you use the gold to pay your nisab, jewelry, etc. If you have mixed zakatable asset, you go with a silver. Some ulama insist on the gold, but that is, you ask your alim in your country you are in. And for articles of trade, we're going to use gold as per AOFE standard. You are in the business now, your asset is growing. Now, when we come to articles of trade, for an item to be considered zakatable, listen to this properly because this is an underpinning principle. The intention must be made at the time of purchase. That is, the item is to be sold and not for personal use. So if an item was purchased for personal use, but then put for sale, it will not be zakatable. Of course, when you sold it, you get the money, and that money stays with you for 1 year, then it will be zakatable. But when you sell it itself, it's not zakat right now, okay? If an item was purchased for personal use with a condition that if a good offer is received, then it will be sold, it will still not be zakatable. For example, you want to buy a flat in Dubai. You go on holiday there, you are not staying. Therefore, you say, okay, if you have got a good offer for the flat, the apartment, I sell it. That's not zakatable. But if you bought it with the intention to sell the apartment, then it will be zakatable. Also, if an item was purchased with the intention of selling, but then kept for personal use, it will no longer be zakatable, even if it put for sale again after. For example, you buy a plot of land with the intention to sell it, and then you realize, no, let me start plowing it, do some farming there. Therefore, you don't pay. But then later, after 5 years, you decide to sell it, you don't pay zakat. Items purchased for sale, but rented out in the interim. Items, so this one is quite tricky. So you bought say for example, you bought a house, an apartment, okay? Because now you want to sell it, but then in the interim, it's not easy to sell an apartment. It takes 6 months, 1 year, times 2 years as well. So in the interim, before you get a purchaser, you decide to rent it out. In that circumstance, you pay zakat on the value of the apartment you bought because your intention is a trading stock, and also you're getting income from it. That will increase your cash. On both, you're going to pay zakat. All right. So zakat on merchandise. Zakat is due on the value of the stock used to selling price market, right? So if you're a businessman, you got stock, you will use your selling price on the market the day you are selling it, yeah, and not the purchase price. Very important, okay? You look at the value because zakat, as we mentioned earlier on, we pay zakat on assets that got the potential to grow. Number 2, value retail and wholesale according to how the items are to be sold. So some people have got big enterprises, they got a department for wholesale and a department for retail. So some ulama say you can look at the wholesale price. Some ulama say no, you separate it, you pay the retail price, you evaluate the stock, and for the wholesale, you evaluate the stock. But if you do the wholesale, there's nothing wrong, okay? You pay a bit less, okay? Zakat is necessary on goods that are manufactured or in the form of raw material, that is the ingredients, packaging, any item which will be included in the final product and sold will be zakatable. And finally, there is no zakat on the property or fixtures and fittings of the business that you are running. So this is about the zakat on merchandise. Now we come to business assets and what are zakatable and what are not zakatable. On your left-hand side, you have the zakatable business assets, cash. Every business will have cash in bank. Okay. Number 2, cash receivables. If you are selling on credit, people owe them, the money will come, that's for sure. Okay. Or cash loan. Number 3, trade receivables, outstanding invoices for goods and stock. And finally, stock and inventory, because all those things have the capability to grow. Okay. You own them. Then you got non-zakatable business assets. Service receivables. What I mean by this is any money owed to the business for services rendered. So you have already delivered the service and money is going to come. We did not own it ab initio. Therefore, that money will be different from you're selling something where you have created a debt. This one is a debt, but you didn't own it ab initio. Prepaid expenses, money which has already been paid and is therefore no longer owned by the business. In business, we pay in advance, maybe rental, for example, right? Fixtures and fittings, of course, you need to have that, but this is not something that will grow in value. You use it to do your business, okay, not to sell it. Property, plants and equipment, and finally, intangible fixed assets, for example, copyright, trademark, patent, that again is not zakatable, all right? So this is very, very basics we have covered just to give you the underpinning principles, which I hope you can benefit from it. Now I will pass on to Sheikh Muhammad, who will be dealing with some types of assets which are zakatable in a modern context. I pass on to Sheikh Muhammad. Jazakallah khair for listening. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First of all, I'd like to begin by extending my gratitude to BIBF, by extension Hijaz also, and to all the attendees, the listeners. Everyone's taken out their time, precious time in the month of Ramadan. It's a month of worship and ibadah. And you know, using our minds and brains while fasting is not easy as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward everyone. And I want to say Jazakallah khair to Shaykh Faizal for giving me the opportunity to present along with him. Just one of the points I'd like to add on to what Shaykh Faizal has been saying about the philosophy of zakat itself. Going back to the issue about zakat being worship. So just like when we pray salah, when we go for hajj, one is the action that we are executing, and then prior to that, we learn how to execute that worship also. And we consider all of that to be worship. So learning how to pray salah, learning how to perform umrah, learning how to perform hajj is also considered a worship and is also rewarded. So in the same way, zakat is a worship. It pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So learning how to give zakat and what to give zakat on, where to discharge the zakat, all of that inshallah will be rewarded for, and it's a duty on us also. Now, one of the things that we see in zakat, because it's related to finance, is that there are always new innovations. There's always new discussions and topics to look at. If we look at 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, the early ulama, zakat on shares, crypto assets, pensions, these things were never discussed. But alhamdulillah, through the ulama, through their efforts, they laid down principles which allow us to now come up with the right answers even for new masail that we face. So, starting off with zakat on shares. Now, if we just understand that when a person buys a share, he's buying a percentage of the company. There is a difference of opinion whether that actually remains the case after certain case laws, but we're going to go with the old understanding that when a person buys shares, then he or she is buying a percentage of that company. Now, just like we looked at articles of trade, okay, zakat on shares is based on the intention of purchase. If they have been bought to sell, zakat will be paid on the market value of the share. Number two, if they have been purchased as a long-term investment through dividends, then zakat is due on the zakatable assets of the company. So what we have is a person buys shares for one of two reasons. Either as a trade, that he's going to hold the stock for a few days. As soon as the price goes up, he's going to sell that. So that becomes an article of trade. It no longer matters about the zakatable assets in the company. The share itself has become a commodity. It's become an article of trade, and therefore the full value of that share will be zakatable. The second scenario is when a person buys shares and holds them for maybe a couple of years with the intention that they're going to benefit from the dividends. So now that stock is no longer an article of trade. Rather, it's a long-term investment. So we no longer pay zakat on the full value. Rather, we only pay zakat on the zakatable assets within that company. And inshallah, the next slide will clarify this further. One of the points I do want to mention, that it is important that in the company must be a halal company. And it's not because this presentation is not for that. But inshallah, if anybody is investing in stocks, then please do look into this also about which kind of stocks and companies you can invest in and which you can't. And there's also the purification process for those companies that do have some unlawful elements. Okay. Now, this is based on, again, when a person is investing for dividends. What really a person needs to do is look at the zakatable assets within the company, and for that would have to go to the balance sheet. So a typical balance sheet of a company will look something like this. You've got the non-current assets, the current assets, and then the current liabilities. And then, you'll have the final figure at the end there. Now, within the assets, you've got some which are zakatable and you've got some which are non-zakatable. In one of the earlier slides, you had things like the patent, the trademark, the logo, goodwill. All of those things are considered assets of the company, but none of them are zakatable. So from the balance sheet, from the assets, you have to take out all of those assets which are considered non-zakatable. Then, as an example, let's say the total assets are obviously 100%, 80% of them will maybe not be non-zakatable. Only 20% of those assets are zakatable, and therefore you'll pay 2.5% on 20% of that company, of the shares that you own. So I'll say that again. This is all based on when you buy shares for long-term investments as dividends. There you don't pay zakat on the full value of your share. You'll only pay zakat on the zakatable assets within that company. And for that, you look at the balance sheet and then take out what's not zakatable and then pays 2.5% on the percentage that remains. Now, understandably, that's quite difficult for everyone to do, and look at a balance sheet, understand what's zakatable, what's not zakatable. Based on that, a proxy of 25% has been given. Now, what's this based on? A number of ulama and experts looked at several companies. And when looking at the balance sheet of those companies, what they realized is that the zakatable assets of those companies don't exceed 25%. So the maximum that they came across was 25% of the assets of that company was zakatable. And therefore, a person can use that proxy that if you don't have the expertise to look at a balance sheet and determine what's zakatable, what's not zakatable, go with 25%. Now, although IOFI hasn't given a figure of 25%, IOFI has said that you can use an estimation. So this is something that we can go with also. Therefore, if we look at the share value is £1,000, the 20% is zakatable based on the scenario where a person's done the checking himself and he's realized that it is only 20%. 20% would be zakatable for that company, which is £200. 2.5% of zakatable assets of £200 is £5, and therefore £5 is what he needs to pay from the £1,000 share value that he has. If a person can't look at the balance sheet themselves, then they can use the proxy of 25%. As a summary, if you are buying shares for trading, short-term trading, then you pay on the full value. If you're buying them for long-term investments and to benefit from the dividends, then you look at the balance sheet and determine accordingly. Otherwise, you can use a proxy of 25%. One of the points I'd like to mention here, that the proxy of 25% was based on the companies, looking at the FTSE 100 and others, that was done basically in the West. In the Gulf region, in the MENA, it may be very different, and therefore there is a need to maybe do some checks on those companies there also to see that there may be a maximum of 20%, or it could go up to 30% also. But this is obviously research which is required. The next thing that we want to look at is pensions. Now, broadly, really, this is something that Shaikh Faizal should have delivered. He's a master of pensions, and this obviously was his PhD also. Nevertheless, within pensions, you've got non-zakatable and zakatable pension schemes. This is based on the UK. So some of these, for example, state pension, something which is we have in the UK here. Some other countries also have this. Not everyone does. Very broadly, I would like to mention here also that pensions is the end of life payment or end of work payment which workers and other people receive. Different countries have similar concepts, just with different names, but the concept is what's really important here. Now, if you've got a defined benefit, which is on the left-hand side, and then a defined contribution, which is on the right-hand side. A defined benefit is when you know in advance exactly how much you're going to get. The defined contribution is you know in advance how much you and your employer are contributing on a monthly, yearly basis to that pension pot. So if it's a defined benefit, then there's no zakat to be paid on that. If it's state pension where the government is, as a benefit scheme, is giving certain people who reach a certain age, they're paying them on a monthly basis because they've reached that age and they've been working up until that age. Now the government wants to repay them as some benefits, then there's no zakat on that. What I want to do here is just understand the principle, which will inshallah reiterate some of the points that Shaykh Faizal mentioned earlier on. Zakat is due on anything that you on a receivable, as long as you had that receivable first. So let's say I lent out money, I lent out £1,000 to a friend. Now, because that's a receivable, I have to pay zakat on that £1,000 even during the 3 years that I've lent the money to him, because that £1,000 was in my ownership and possession at one point. On the other hand, if there's a receivable which was never in my ownership and possession, then I don't pay zakat on that. So the state pension, which the government is going to give me, that money was never in my ownership or possession. So although it's a receivable, I know I'm going to get this at the end of the month, I won't include that in my zakat calculation because that money was never in my ownership or possession at any point. Based on this, now the reason there's no zakat on the defined benefit is there's no ownership of the assets, only right to receive a pension, which is the deferred salary. So that salary which I'm going to get, that was never in my ownership or possession, and therefore there's no zakat. On that same note, again based on IOP standards, let's say I've offered services. So let's say I'm an accountant, I've worked out the tax for one of my clients, and all the hours that I've put in, I need to charge him, let's say £3,000. He's asked that, can you give me till next week to pay? I said, that's fine. And within that week is my zakat date. Now, do I include that £3,000 within my zakatable assets? I won't. The reason being that although it's a receivable, it's a receivable for services which have been offered, and there's no zakat to be paid on receivables for services which have been rendered. So in the same way here, the pension which a person receives, the defined benefit, is simply an added salary, and there's no zakat on this salary which a person is expecting. And again, based on different pensions, but the deduction is mandatory. The employee doesn't have a choice in some scenarios, that is. So liability is on the employer, and it's invested on behalf of the employee and not employee. Now, zakat will be paid once received. What does this mean? Let's say that at the age of 70, a person now withdraws and pulls out the he's going to claim his pension. Let's say he's getting a payment of £50,000. Does he pay zakat on the full £50,000? Well, it depends when his zakat date is. If his zakat date is 1 day after he withdraws that money, then yes, he'll pay zakat on the £50,000. On the other hand, let's say he's withdrawn £50,000 and he then spends £45,000, and on his zakat date he's only got £5,000 left. Well, he'll only pay zakat on £5,000 now. You don't pay zakat on everything you've taken out. You simply pay zakat on the residue, anything which remains on the zakat date. If we now move to the zakat table, which is on the right-hand side, Here there's a defined contribution and money purchase, which is when a person is contributing willingly on a regular basis, either through their employer or through a private pension scheme. There, what's happening is that that money was yours. You have now invested that yourself, or you've asked your employer to invest for you. And therefore, it's like you've appointed them as an agent to take possession of your money and then invest it. That's why the defined contribution is zakatable, but the defined benefit is non-zakatable. In here, there's a choice to opt in or opt out, and therefore a person has chosen to opt in. And that's where we have the concept of wakala, that you've given somebody the right to take possession of your salary. They then invest that, and that grows, and that full investment and that pension pot now becomes zakatable. Again, what's important here, as will be inshallah clarified on the next slide, that the pension investment itself must be halal. Now, because we've got so many different types of pension schemes, sometimes invest in property, sometimes invest in sukuk, sometimes invest in unlawful bonds. So how do we now determine the zakatable element within the different pension schemes? Inshallah, that's what we'll be looking at here. Okay, now, if I just go to the top right-hand corner, so these are some of the investments that the pensions will invest in. You've got Sharia funds, you've got direct property funds, you've got equity funds, you've got mixed asset funds, bonds, gilts, fixed interest funds, and so forth. Obviously, now you can add sukuk and stuff like that in here also, crypto assets also. Now, if we look at the middle column, the zakatable assets proxy, this was again based on the same concept that was done on the zakat on shares, where we look at the companies, where they're investing, and how much of those assets of those companies are zakatable. So when we looked at the Sharia funds, it was based on an average of 26%. So if a person's pension is based purely on Sharia funds, then that means 26% of their pension pot is zakatable. Therefore, 2.5% of 26% of their pension pot is what is. And you can use that same formula for the others. If we look at mixed asset funds, which is number 4 in the column, there you've got in the row, sorry, you've got mixed asset funds. There, based on the research done, 50% of those assets was zakatable. Therefore, 2.5% of 50% will need to be paid. Now, the last one is quite interesting. Let's say that the pension pot is investing in bonds and gilts, and fixed or even fixed interest. There, the return is purely haram. Therefore, you only pay on the capital. So therefore, 2.5% of 100%. The reason being is that the entire capital is still money. It's not been invested in any tangible asset, meaning anything which you own, like property. Property, if property is being bought to sell, then it's fully zakatable. If property is being bought to rent out, it's not zakatable. Now, when we look at companies, you've got different assets within those companies, and that's where we have the proxy of 26% or 15%. When we look at bonds, because the interest is purely haram, that can't be included. And therefore, you'll have to look at the capital only, which is 100%, and therefore 2.5% of 100% of the pension will be given in zakat. The blue part at the bottom is a breakdown of this. So let's say a person's pension is investing in different, you've got equity funds, direct property funds, and there it's 50% for both. So as in a person's got 2 investments in equity funds and direct property funds, which is split 50-50. The proxy for equity funds is 27%, and the proxy for the direct property funds is 15%. If you look on the right-hand side, therefore the total zakatable percentage from equity funds is 13.5%, and the total zakatable percentage from direct property funds is 7.5%, equaling to 21%. Which means 21% of your pension pot is now zakatable. Okay, 21% is zakatable. Therefore, you'll pay 2.5% on that 20% of the pension pot. I hope this is clear. I do understand that it's quite technical, a lot of percentages to look at, a number of numbers to look at also. But inshallah, you know, do go over the recording again. Feel free to take a snapshot of this screen and use it, inshallah. Okay. Next comes zakat on crypto assets. This is obviously a new phenomenon. And subhanallah, when I was looking into this, I just want to mention this as a point that, you know, what the fuqaha have done. When you look at what the fuqaha wrote even 800-900 years ago on the concept of what they call fulus, you see so many similarities between the fulus and crypto assets in terms of their usage. So the concept that there is something which is used as currency only by one area, one community, one group of traders. So all of that, they'd have fulus on there. And the fuqaha spoke about the concept of zakat on fulus. So a number of masail relating to zakat on crypto assets is based on zakat on fulus. Okay. Now, when we look at zakat on crypto assets, we have to look at two things. Number one, intention of purchase, and number two, functionality of the crypto asset itself. So number one was the intention of purchase, and number two is the functionality of the crypto asset itself. If the crypto asset has been purchased to resell, just like when a person buys shares, he can either buy them as a trade, so for a short-term investment, a person's bought them, he's going to wait for a few days and then sell them. Or then a person's going to use them to benefit from the dividends. In the same way, when a person buys crypto assets, if they are purchased to trade, so short-term investments, then zakat is necessary on the full value of that crypto asset, just like when you buy shares. So that's very simple. On the second hand, a person can buy crypto assets to hold, like many people are buying Bitcoin, not to sell within the next few days, but they want this to grow over the next few years because they're expecting this, what some predictions are, that Bitcoin is going to hit £1 million or $1 million. Allah knows if it ever will reach that. But that's why certain people are buying Bitcoin. So it's not a short-term investment trade, rather it's a long-term investment for the growth of that crypto. So if a person is buying crypto assets to hold, now in some scenarios there will be zakat, in others there won't be zakat. If that crypto asset is a currency, then there's always zakat. So just sidetracking here, crypto assets is a broad term. Within crypto assets, you've got cryptocurrencies. Now, if it's a cryptocurrency, then it's always zakatable because that's just like money. So whether it's a pound, it's a dollar, it's a dinar, it's a dirham, it doesn't matter. It's always zakatable because it's a currency. Let's say that the crypto asset isn't currency, but the underlying asset itself is zakatable. As an example, you've got PAX gold, KAG silver. So what happens in these crypto assets, that a person's actually buying gold and silver, and that digital asset which he has is simply like a digital certificate representing that gold and silver. So if I was to buy gold or silver, I'd obviously pay zakat on that. In the same way, if I'm buying a crypto asset which represents my ownership in that gold or silver, then again I will pay zakat on that crypto asset because I'm actually paying zakat on the gold or silver. Zakat will be necessary. Let's say the underlying asset is not zakatable. So within the underlying asset, you're going to have zakatable assets like gold or silver. Or then you may even have underlying assets which are not zakatable. This could include things like gas, oil. Now here there's a difference of opinion between the ulama of whether oil itself is zakatable, whether gas is zakatable. Other precious metals. Now when it comes to precious metals, there's no zakat on them. So let's take the example of precious metals. If a person buys a crypto asset which represents ownership in a metal, not gold or silver, then there's no zakat, because the metal itself was never zakatable. The fourth scenario is where there's no underlying asset itself, meaning that when a person buys a crypto asset, you're not owning anything underlying that crypto asset. Rather, what you have is that you've got governance rights, you've got utility rights, and so forth. So as an example, you've got some ecosystems where all you're doing is they allow you to transfer other. So when you buy that one crypto asset, what that gives you the right to do is use the functionality of that ecosystem to transfer other cryptos. So it's a utility which you have. You're not owning anything other than those numbers. So because here you're not owning anything, there's no zakat to be paid either. So as a summary, when a person buys crypto assets, you're either going to buy them to sell within the next few days, so as a trade. There, you don't look at the functionality anymore. Because the intention is to sell that crypto asset, you'll always pay zakat on that. The functionality is now disregarded. If, however, you're holding the crypto asset as a long-term investment, that's when now you look at the functionality. If the functionality is a currency, there's zakat. If the functionality is you own an asset which itself is zakatable, then you'll pay zakat. If the functionality is that you own an asset which is not zakatable, then you don't pay zakat. And if the functionality is simply a utility, then again, there's no zakat to pay. So this is really the summary of zakat on crypto assets. Okay. Now we move to deductibles. Deductibles are those things that a person can minus from his total assets. Debts already owed will be deductible from zakatable assets. So let's say my portfolio is £1 million, $1 million, but I owe somebody £50,000 or $50,000 to be paid over the next, let's say, 12 months. So I can minus that 50,000. Bills which are already due are deductible, not future bills. So let's say, for example, that utility bills, so electricity or gas, phone bills, as an example, rent, all of that is included in this. So let's say I'm renting a property for 24 months. I've already used 6 months. And I'm going to pay rent, as an example, let's say quarterly. So the amount that's already due, that I can definitely deduct. The future bills can only be deducted when you are already bound to in that contract. So let's say, for example, that you are bound to stay within that contract for 24 months. You have no choice to opt out. Now that can be deducted also, because it's an expense which is binding on you. But let's say you have the option of cancelling that lease contract. Now you can't deduct the full 24 months because you do have the option of withdrawing from that agreement, and therefore you'll never end up using the lease agreement for the full 24 months. The third scenario is long-term debts are to be paid off in installments, such as mortgage payments. Amount due for the coming year may be deducted, not the entire loan. Now here is where there's we have to come back to the philosophy of zakat again. And this is why it's so important, just like Shaykh Faizal mentioned earlier on, that the 2.5%, it's really a minimum. We really should be looking at zakat as an opportunity to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, should long-term debts be deducted or not? Here what's important is that we look at a case-by-case scenario. And I'm going to present 2 scenarios. So let's say person A, we'll call him Abdullah, he has a mortgage agreement of 25 years. Over the 25 years, let's say he's going to be paying $1,000 on a monthly basis. His income is only $2,000. So in the $2,000 on a monthly basis, he needs to pay his the mortgage, he's got his car expenses, he's got food expenses, gas and electricity, and so forth. So this person is just about paying off the expenses on a monthly basis. Now, so that's one person. Person B, let's say Abdul Rahman, let's say his again, making monthly payments of $1,000, but his income on a monthly basis is $5,000. So he has a surplus of $3,000. So $1,000 is going into the mortgage payments, and $1,000, let's say, is for the house expenses. He has a surplus of $3,000, which this person uses for living a lavish lifestyle. So as you can see, there is a difference between both individuals here. So when the ulama speak about not deducting long-term debts, that's really for people who want to use the full 25-year mortgage so that they can live a comfortable lifestyle. On the other hand, if a person wants to make off payments as soon as he can, and therefore any money that he saves he's using to pay off, then this person can deduct the long-term debts also. So this difference does need to be made, and it should be taken on a case-by-case basis. The things which can be deducted. Non-deductibles. So liabilities which are considered liabilities, but you can't deduct them for zakat purposes. Number one, future expenses and bills. And as like I mentioned, future expenses and bills. So let's say a person's got a phone. Can I deduct my monthly bill for the next 10 years? I know I'm going to have my phone for the next 10 years. Let's say I'm paying £20 or $20 on a monthly basis. Can I deduct that for the next 10 years? I can't. What I can do is the agreement that I have up until when I can't back out, that I can deduct, because that's now a liability. That's a fixed liability on me. That I can't deduct. That I can deduct. But future bills and expenses which I'm expecting, I can't deduct them. What else will become under future expense? Let's say you've got a property. It could be a personal property. It could be something within the company. Let's say that you're going to do an extension on the premises. You've looked at all the costs. You've spoken to the architect. You've looked at the legal requirements, everything, and you know it's going to cost you $100,000. Can I deduct that from my zakat date now? I can't, because that expense hasn't formed a liability as yet. It's a future expense. Yes, if the work has started, anything which I owe up to that time, that I can deduct, but future expenses can't be deducted. Any interest payments, that can't be deducted either. Now, this works again when you're taking loans from banks, credit card companies, all of this. So if a person needs to pay interest, because Allah and the Prophet ﷺ have forbidden interest in totality, you can't take interest, neither can you pay interest, and therefore a person should never have engaged in the agreement from the outset. Therefore, the interest liability can't be deducted either. Income gained from unlawful means, sale of alcohol, lottery tickets. So let's say a person's bought a lottery ticket and he needs to pay that. A person's purchased alcohol and he needs to pay that. Now, if I was buying drinks, let's say Coke, let's say I bought 1,000 cans of Coke and I need to pay £1,000, but the seller has given me 1 month to pay. And within that 1 month, my zakat date comes, I can deduct that as a liability. But Allah forbid, if somebody was to buy 1,000 bottles of alcohol and he's been given 1 month to pay, and within that 1 month is when his zakat date comes, he can't deduct that because the purchase of alcohol itself is haram. What happens with interest and unlawful commodities? Such wealth must be given in charity without intending any reward. Okay. Now, the previous few slides, we looked at shares, we looked at crypto assets, we looked at pensions, we looked at gold and silver as well, money, currencies, all of that. You've got all of your assets now. Now, how do we actually calculate zakat? It's very simple. Add all of your gold, your silver, your cash. Now, the cash in any currency it is. Any currency. And now crypto asset currencies will be included in this also. So add your gold, your silver, and your cash. Add your merchandise, so meaning your articles of trade. And just a reminder, articles of trade are any goods that you've bought with the intention to sell again. Anything you've bought to hold as an investment, to lease out, with a not a fixed intention to sell. Maybe I'll sell, I'll just see how the market is. If there's a good market, I'll sell. Otherwise, I'll just use it for myself. I'll put it on rent. That doesn't form an article of trade. So that's what merchandise is. Add your shares and the pensions. And again, with the shares and pensions, look at the proxies mentioned. Add your crypto assets in there also. Now, add loans owed to you by others. When we look at receivables, receivables are anything which you are owed. Here we have to make a difference for why you are owed that money. If you are owed that money because you've lent it out, then you definitely pay zakat on that. But let's say you are owed that money for services which have been rendered, inheritance which you are expecting, there you don't include this. Okay, so loans, money owed to you by others, you pay zakat only if it's a loan or if it's a sale on credit. Okay, if it's a sale on credit. Once you've done that, those are all of the assets. Now you minus the debts that you owed based on the deductibles as we looked at in the previous two slides. Once you've done all of that, apply 2.5% to the total. So you've added all of your assets. You've also added in things which you are going to collect as a receivable if it's a loan or if it's because if it's a credit sale. You've added all of your assets in. Now you minus your debt and you pay 2.5% of that total then. I hope inshallah this is clear. Now, what are the conditions for discharging zakat? Now that you want to pay your zakat, you know exactly how much you have to pay. Let's say it comes to $5,000. When you're discharging that zakat, when you're paying that zakat, what are the conditions that need to be found for the zakat to be considered discharged validly? Number one, intention. That when you're paying, you must know that you're paying zakat. Now, what's interesting here is, the recipient, they don't have to know that it's zakat. So let's say you're giving zakat to a friend. So a friend, let's say he's bought a property and he wants to pay off his property as soon as he can. So he is al-gharim. He's like this, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ الْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ فِي الرِّقَابِ وَالْغَارِمِينَ. Al-gharimeen are those people who are indebted. So a person whose debts are more than his assets, you can give zakat to them. So let's say you want to give zakat to a friend, but because it's a close friend, you don't want to tell him that it's zakat because he'll feel belittled. So he doesn't know. He doesn't need to know it's zakat. You can tell him that, look, this is a loan for you, but your intention is, I'm not going to take this back. So your zakat will still be done. So intention when giving zakat, that it's zakat, is important. It must be unconditional. So you can't tell the person that I'm giving you this zakat on the condition that you give me a gift also, or that you give me something back. No, it must be unconditional. Must not be a payment for goods or services. So let's say you already owe this person. So let's say this person that's, you decided that he's a faqir, he's a poor person who can take zakat, but let's say he's, he washed a car for you, as an example, and you owe him some money for that. So you think, okay, because he's a faqir and I owe him money anyway, I'll just give zakat to him. No, the payment for washing the car is separate and the payment for zakat is separate also. So that's the first condition, intention. Number two, ownership. That's to do with the zakat money itself. Zakat must go into the ownership of an individual. It can't be an institute, it can't be an organization, it can't be a masjid. It must go into the ownership of one person. Number two, that the person must be a natural person, not, for example, a juristic person. So like I said, it can't be given to a masjid. You can't give zakat to dig wells because not one person owns that. Some of these countries, what they do is that they build or they provide water pumps. So they act as small wells. The water pump is owned by someone in that family. That's okay to give as zakat because, again, the item is going to be owned by someone. But the well is a communal well, which is owned, it's not owned by anyone. So you can't dig wells with zakat. And possession is important also. So ownership and possession. In order for zakat to be considered discharged, the person, the recipient, must have taken possession of this. This is actually very, very important. And what I'd recommend is, if you're giving zakat through charities, then do your checks on charities. Unfortunately, because I advise a couple of charities on zakat also, what you come across is that some of these charities actually hold the zakat for several months. Because the charities are only acting as agents, they are not the recipients themselves. The zakat is not considered discharged until the recipient gets it, until the recipient has taken possession. So do those checks that which charities discharge the zakat within the first few days, which of them are holding the zakat for months and months. So inshallah, do these checks also. The third condition for a valid discharge of zakat is the recipient himself. The person must qualify as a faqir. And inshallah, I'll explain this on the next slide. The recipient can't be the payer's parents, children, or spouse. So these are the only restrictions in terms of family members. Can you give to uncles and aunts? Yes, you can. Siblings? Yes. Nephews and nieces? Yes. So parents, children, and spouse, you can't give zakat. And parents include grandparents, great-grandparents. Children include grandchildren and great-grandchildren also. Okay. Now, most of this has been explained on the previous slide, so I'm not going to explain it again because we are running short of time. Zakat can't be given to children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, parents, great-grandparents, and so forth, spouse, whether it's a wife or the husband. There is some difference of opinion between the ulama on this. Ayofi hasn't discussed this, so inshallah I want to speak to respective ulama on this. The Banu Hashim, or the descendants of Ali, Ja'far, Aqil, Harith, and Abbas radiallahu anhum, also sometimes referred to as Sayyids, zakat can be given to them also. A person who does not have the nisab of zakat, but has goods beyond the essential needs, which reach the value of nisab, they can be given zakat also. And this I'm going to explain here. Now, types of assets in relation to taking zakat. The previous discussion when we looked at assets was all about who has to give zakat. Looking at taking zakat, who can take zakat? So again, let's look at assets, but from this perspective now. So well, you've got zakatable wealth, which is gold, silver, currencies, and trade goods, and the non-zakatable wealth, necessary assets, and those assets beyond necessary but non-productive. So for example, a watch. A watch, I would say, is in today's day, especially in the West, is no longer a hajj asli need because everyone has phones, which is a hajj asliya, and you can tell the time on the phone. So a watch is really, it says it looks nice. Let's say a person has three coats. One or two coats can be considered hajj asliya. The third coat isn't hajj asliya. So these are all assets beyond your basic needs, but they're not productive in nature. So you don't pay zakat on them, but they are beyond your basic needs. So these are the kind of assets we've got so far. Okay. Now let's look at this. If we look on the right-hand side, the corner just as the, so you've got zakatable assets, gold, silver, trade, which is in blue. And then you've got non-zakatable assets, which are in green. So let's say the nisab is $500. Based on what we looked at yesterday, it's just under $500, but let's look at $500. So the blue bar is the zakatable assets, and the green is the non-zakatable assets. Scenario number one is a person's zakatable assets are above the nisab, so more than $500. This person will have to pay zakat. Obviously, if you're paying zakat, you can't take zakat. Second scenario, the person's zakatable assets are below the nisab. So let's say his zakatable assets are only $300, which is below the nisab. This person won't pay zakat, but look at the green bar, which are his non-zakatable assets above his basic needs. They are more than nisab. So let's say all of the personal assets that he has, which are above his basic needs, value to $2,000. So they are more than nisab. This person won't pay zakat, but because his non-essential assets are more than nisab, neither can he take zakat. So he won't pay zakat, but he can't take zakat either. The third scenario is a person whose zakatable assets are below nisab, but his non-zakatable assets are also below nisab. This person obviously doesn't pay zakat, but he is a valid recipient. This third person is who we consider a faqir. It's this person to whom zakat can be given. The first two categories, zakat can't be given to them. Inshallah, I hope this is clear. I'm just going to go through some IOFI guidance on discharging zakat. Number one, zakat can't be discharged by absolving debtors of their debts which are owed to the zakat payer. So let's say I'm going to pay zakat. There's a person who owes me money. I've lent him money. So let's say I've lent him $5,000. Now this person is a faqir also based on the explanation which I provided earlier. So this person is a faqir, but he also owes me $5,000. If I just say that don't pay me the $5,000, so I'm absolving the debtor, that is not good enough for zakat. There must be an i'ta, there must be a giving. So what you can do is give $5,000 and say, now give me my money back. So you've given zakat, which is i'ta done, and now he will return the loan that he lent you also. But just absolving is not good enough for zakat. Zakat should be paid within the first year of becoming due. Zakat can also be paid before its due time. Again, based on IFA guidance, let's say a person's zakat date is the 1st of Muharram, let's say 1446. By the 29th of Dhul Hijjah, 1446, he should pay his zakat. Now, there's no penalty if a person goes beyond that date, but a person's done something which he shouldn't have. Okay. Can zakat be paid before its due time? So let's say if we take the example of Ramadan, let's say a person pays every year on the 15th of Ramadan. Somebody is coming to him on the 5th of Ramadan saying that, look, brother, I need zakat, sister, I need zakat, is there anything you can give me? Can you pay? Yes, you can give zakat even before it's due. Zakat can be discharged anywhere in the world wherever there's a pressing need. Zakat can be utilized in investment projects, provided that a valid recipient is made the owner. So let's say that through a charity, you're building properties. So again, that's an investment project, which is fine, as long as the property will be handed over to a valid recipient at the end. Zakat can be paid in terms of the equivalent value of the subject commodity. What this means is that, let's say a person's got articles of trade. Does the person have to give an article of trade itself in zakat? So let's say I'm investing in cars. Do I have to give, if I've got, let's say 100 cars, and I have to give 2.5%, do I have to give 2.5 cars away in zakat? Or can I give the value? No, I can pay the value. I don't have to give from the commodities themselves. This brings us to the end of the presentation. I do apologize for having rushed the last two slides, but I do want to stick within the time that's agreed. Jazakumullahu khairan to everybody for attending. I hope that everything that's been discussed by Shaykh Faizal and myself has been useful. And I hope that inshallah some of these points that you'll be able to use in discharging zakat. And inshallah, I hope that some of these points that you can share with others also. Jazakumullahu khairan. Inshallah, I'll hand it back over to Brother Ridwan, inshallah, to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Ibrahim and Sheikh Faizal. I think that was a lot of material covered in the 70-80 minutes that we had. So Jazakumullah khair. I think we have to, certainly there will be a need to go through the video of the presentation, which will be inshallah uploaded on the YouTube channel of BIBF, inshallah, for the ease of everybody. I think a lot of important stuff has been covered, and you've touched on some of the very, very crucial aspects, some of the misconceptions, and provide clarity over it. I must say, we've got limited time, and now let's see how far we can get to. But we've got a number of questions that have been asked in the Q&A tab. But before we go into Q&A tab, there is a brother who actually had raised hand a long time ago, Brother Abdurrahman Al-Kuhaiji, and he had a couple of questions as well. So I'll allow him to ask by voice, if you don't mind, and then I'll request everybody to ask the question briefly so that we can make the best use of the time. So Brother Abdurrahman, you're allowed to ask a question by voice. If you can unmute yourself and ask the question, it will be helpful. Brother Abdurrahman, are you there?
Yes, yes. Now I got it. Yes,
All right.
how are you guys? Thank you, first of all, for the presentation. It was very beneficial, and we really appreciate you guys taking your time and explaining all of that. So, my question was mainly about the investments on the shares. When we were talking about the investments on shares, and I asked these questions a lot. Uh, the question was mainly about, or the question of the shares was mainly about the NIA. So are you holding the shares for trading purposes, short term, like just for a few days and sell it, or long term and collecting the dividends? However, there is a third type of shares, which is capital appreciation, similar to Sheikh Ibrahim. I think you spoke about the cryptocurrency, that you buy it for the intention that one day in the future it might hold a huge value. So I will sell it. So in that case, similar to a land, buying a land today for the purpose of I just feel it's cheap and I'll sell it like in 20 years. In that case, do I pay zakah annually or do I pay zakah once I sell and realize these gains or losses once I sell them? Or should I go with the first method of paying them via the company assets?
Do you want to answer that? Okay, so it's a very good question, very pertinent question. This is just like you said, it's actually just like buying land.
Yes.
So there, you wouldn't pay zakat annually on the entire share. But you'll only pay zakat once it's actually been sold. So this is just like buying property or buying land with the intention that sometime in the future, whenever there's been a sale, and depending on the market, I'll sell then. So in the same way, you'll only pay zakat once it's sold. However, because you will be benefiting from the dividends also, then there I recommend in that scenario that you do pay zakat on the dividends also. So you'll pay zakat on the 25% proxy as mentioned.
Okay.
Okay.
Even if the dividends are not gained, it's still reinvested.
Yes, because in the reinvestment, what's happening is that although you're not taking them physically, what you're doing is you're allowing them to reinvest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
But this is just like the wakala concept.
Okay, got it.
Wonderful. We've got another hand raised. Muhammad Ahmed, Aina, you're allowed to ask by voice.
Thank you, brother, and thanks for the presenters. It's really a very good presentation. We are a new bank. Almost we are in the market for 5 years. The bank commenced operations on 15th July 2019, and up to date we have not paid the zakah. We have been, facing some challenges, in the adjustment of the howl. So I want to ask the Mashayikh where we can start the howl. Are we going to start it from, 15 July, where that is the time we have started our commenced operations, or we wait until the end of the year, that 1st December, where that the balance sheet is always based on that 1st December 2019. So the adjustment of how, for example, when the company starts operation is at the middle of the year. That's my question to Mashayikh. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, if you look at the AOIF standard, one of the conditions to say whether you have to pay at the company or not is whether the law of the land insists on that. So where you are based, is it the law of the land? Is it imposed on you by the law that the bank must pay zakat?
No.
So if this is not the law, the shareholders, they must take their responsibility because it's not the law of the land, right? So it's a juristic person. The bank is a juristic person, right? I know, like for example, in Saudi, there are some laws, so that is different then. So if you look at the AOIF standard, there are 3 conditions they are put there when the institute will pay zakat, right? So in your case, it's not the law of the land. Let the shareholders handle their zakat. Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Thank you, Sheikh.
Although
Sorry, go
IOP
ahead.
has given some guidance that if the company does want to pay themselves, then that can be done based on the Sharia board's approval and guidance. But coming back to your question, I think your question was based on when should they start paying? Should they pay mid-year or should they wait till one lunar year passes? I think that's what your original question was. So what you'd need to do whenever the Islamic date of the opening of the bank, you'll consider the following year. You'll consider the following year. So I think you said 19th July 2019. So you look at 2020, 19th July. Now, although that's a solar year, again, what IOFI has said that you can pay 2.57% there in order to take in the extra 10 days that have been missed out for paying zakat. So what you now need to do is that the first time you pay zakat is 1 year after you open the bank. The day you open the bank, there's not been 1 year yet. So you'll pay 1 year later. So that's the first time you pay. In terms of backdating, there were a couple of slides which I had prepared, but I then took them out because of the time. What I'm more than happy to do, inshallah, the contact details are there. Inshallah, I can help you on this, inshallah, of this, because there's a certain way you have to backdate it.
Actually, we were looking for some consultants, because if we pay to compute 1 year after, which is the next July of the year, the balance sheet is prepared based on annual base, that first December. That's the date of the balance sheet. So we will face some challenges if we start computing it the next of the next year.
Brother, I think what we'll do then, this is a bit complicated and detailed. What we can do is please take our contact details, and inshallah we can more than happy to discuss this. It'll probably take about half an hour to look at everything, inshallah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So brother, he will share with me, inshallah.
Which country?
Inshallah, just take the details down. Take my detail down and you can contact me. Yeah.
We'll connect.
I will put the details on the chat, inshallah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So
thank you.
Going to the, we've got a number of questions. Time is not on our side, so I'll pick and choose, some of the questions. There's a very, there's a question by a sister that I own shares but have never taken out zakah on them because I don't know how to. The number of shares is known. How to navigate calculating the zakah due on these shares, which I receive dividend for yearly. I think you've explained that on the price. Okay. There's another question which says cash deposited a bank guarantee to supplier for taking stocks or goods on credit from the supplier on a recurring basis, like stock replenishing cycle on a monthly basis. Would that cash be liable to zakah calculation? Usually the stock.
Is that in the chat? It's a quite long question. Is that in the chat? I can maybe just read it myself.
Yeah. It says cash deposited as a bank guarantee to the supplier for taking stock or goods on credit from a supplier on a recurring basis. Would that cash be liable for zakah calculations?
I can't.
What? You can't find the question.
Yeah, I can't find the question. Okay, here. Cash deposited in a bank guaranteed to the supplier for taking stocks, goods, and credit from the supplier on a recurring basis, like stocks. So it's released on credit term. Okay, so what I understand that a buyer has left a deposit at a bank to buy goods on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay. So here, this is like the concept of the Arabun and the Hamish Jiddiyah, which IOFI has discussed also. So here, it depends on the agreement between the bank and the seller also. So let's say that this is like an advance payment for regular stock which is going to come. Okay, here you won't need to pay zakat on that. Because let's say it's a pre-order on a monthly basis. So I know a lot of, for example, restaurants will do this, that they'll have bare ingredients on a monthly basis. And they've got an agreement with the bank and the seller that on a monthly basis, deliver this, and that's what will be paid. So there's no zakat on that.
Okay. I think but the question is, it's used as a guarantee against some advances that have been paid. So that cash is sitting there idle as a guarantee. So would there be a zakat due on that?
Okay, like as a bank guarantee.
Yes.
Okay, so here there are two scenarios. In some of the guarantee, there's zakat to pay, and there's in some scenarios there's no zakat to pay. I'm just Sheikh Faiz, do you remember which one IOP has gone with? I can't remember which one IOP has gone with, because there's always been a classical difference of opinion on this. I do apologize for that. Inshallah, what I'll do is I'll just check that once for you again, and I'll inshallah send the answer over to you. I don't want to answer without being 100% sure.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's only fair. And okay, there's another question from a CFO of a bank. It says, if I invested in a portfolio of Islamic shares in stock exchange, will I pay zakah on the market value of the cut-off date, or to calculate zakah per share based on the zakatable assets of each company, which may be lower than the market value?
I'm just going to find that question, because sometimes it's... This one. Sorry, Ridwan, could you repeat the question, please?
It's from brother Saqib Mustafa.
Saqib Mustafa.
Can we repeat it?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
If I invested in a portfolio of Islamic shares in stock exchange, will I pay zakah on the market value of the cut-off date, or to calculate zakah per share based on the zakatable assets of each company, which may be lower than the market value? So I guess the question is between the price per share versus the total assets of the company. How to calculate zakah on either the price of the company, which is the market, market cap, or the the total assets of the company.
It's just the question is slightly unclear to me. That's why I'm just, or to calculate zakat per share based on the zakatable assets of each company. So will I pay zakat on the market value of the cutoff date? What do you mean by the cutoff date?
So the cutoff date is basically your, let's say if it's the if the date when you actually pay the zakah, for example.
Oh, okay, the date that you must pay zakat. Right, okay, yes. So that's the date that you'll have to look at. Okay, so you'll pay zakat on the market value of that date. The market value of that date.
Okay.
Okay. There's one thing again I want to raise again here, because this has been discussed in other countries as well. Is it the fund manager who has to pay zakat, or the shareholders? Yeah, the owner of the unit.
Yes.
So again, refer to AYF standard. If it's not, the law is not imposing it on you, why are you taking that responsibility? Yeah, think about it as well. Yeah, if the law is insisting, I understand. AYF deals with that. For example, in South Africa, where I sat on the fund management, we don't take that responsibility. We tell the people, look, you own this amount. This is the amount you got, and that day this is the value you decide, because maybe he doesn't have to pay zakat, that shareholder. Yeah, maybe he doesn't have to pay zakat for whatever reason. Maybe he doesn't got nisab, or his debt is very advanced, and you are paying zakat for him. Yeah. So think about it again. You talk to your Sharia board.
Just on that point, though, again, you'll have to look at whether you're buying the portfolio as a trade or then as dividends. So in the same way, if it's a trade, then you pay on the full value, the market value. Okay, so it's the same as discussed in the crypto assets and in the shares. The answer is the same.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. I know you've covered this, but a couple of very common misconceptions. One, And this is for the benefit of everybody in case anybody has missed out, especially for the gold that is used. Do you pay zakah on all the gold that ladies have, or you pay only the ones that you use for investment purposes? That's just one very quick one. Maybe it's just one liner.
We mentioned that in the Lahnaf, in material, what you do with it, you have to pay. It is with you. Jamhur says if you are using it, then you don't pay.
And then the second question is again around the cash. Do you wait for it to complete 1 year, or you wait for you just at a cutoff time, whatever amount that you have, you pay zakah on that?
Ideally, it's better to wait 1 year just so that there's a full calculation. But you do have the option of paying early also. So if the person wants to pay on a monthly basis, that's fine also.
Okay. We are over time already, but there are a couple of colleagues, and if you don't mind, I'll ask them to ask the questions by voice. One is by Dr. Sayyid Salman Ali. Dr. Salman, you're allowed to ask by voice. If you can unmute yourself. Dr. Salman Ali, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for nice presentation. My question is regarding, you mostly spoke about individual zakat, but what about zakat on a company? Whether an individual shareholder is responsible or the company is responsible. I would like you to elaborate on that as well.
I mean, AOIF standard is very strict. I mean, the very first page on zakat, you will find it there. They put 3 conditions. One, as I mentioned. Now, if it is your own company, there are 2 points here. One is it's your own company. Like in UK, I myself, I got my company. Sheikh got his company. Very easy. So it doesn't make a real difference. You own it. It's just a question of legal entity for protecting yourself, etc. Right? So that one aspect you got to consider. People do the private company, private limited company. Then you got companies which have board of directors, this and that. They are listed companies. In that case, this is where your question comes in. That is where I said, look at the AOIF standard. If the law of the land is telling you, you must have it, then you pay. The normal calculation of zakat, you look at the asset and so on and so forth. If the law of the land doesn't say it, like I mentioned, the case like in South Africa we do, is basically we tell the shareholders or whoever own the assets, this is what you will be paying. The company does not pay for that. Yeah, we shift it to the owners. Yeah, I hope I answered your question, Dr. Ali.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last question, and I had to apologize for other colleagues for not able to entertain the questions. MashaAllah, there is an influx of questions that have come through. I allow the question, Brother Muzaffar. You're allowed by voice. If you have any pressing question to ask which hasn't been covered, please do that very briefly. Brother Muzaffar, are you with us? You can unmute yourself. Okay, that saves the time. Do you want me to ask another question, given that that question hasn't been asked?
I'm okay for
Okay. Okay. Brother Muhammad Tariq, I think you've got a...
Yeah. You allow me one last question, Brother Radwan.
Brother, I think in the interest of time, let's come back to you, afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Brother Muhammad Tariq, are you allowed? I think there was a question from Brother Tariq. Okay, Brother Muhammad Tariq, yeah, I think you can ask by voice. Okay, that actually saves us a minute or two.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, it is loud in the office. So I actually wanted to just add, Jazakumullah khair, Mashaykh, for this amazing presentation. And Sheikh Ibrahim and Sheikh Faizal did an amazing job. And there was this, I can see that a lot of recurring question comes about the individual's investment in shares, and what the value of the what is the value that we calculate zakat on? Is it the market value of the shares, or is it the net zakatable assets for the shares, which will require certain amount of calculation by the individual? Some of the questions that were posted were not really clear from that end. But at the end, I believe IOFI has covered it really well in terms of the Zakat Standard 35, where they mentioned that if it is a trading asset, like Sheikh Ibrahim had mentioned, if the investment in share is by the individual is considered a trading investment where they want to buy and sell and make the profits, then it is zakat as a whole on the date of howl upon the market value of that share. And if the investor is holding on to it for any other reason, be it dividends, be it capital gains in long term, or just believing in the concept and they want to hold on to their ownership in the company, then there's also the method of calculating the zakatable assets, wherein cash, receivables, and tradable assets are added, and then deducted from that pool is the liabilities payable within 1 year, current liabilities. And there is this zakat base, and then you have a certain amount of shares in the pool of the investment of that company. So you calculate the zakat per share like you do calculate the dividend per share, and reach to the value of zakat payable by you as an individual investor. So that's, I believe, the methodology that is advised by IOFI, and Mashayikh have already covered it. So when I raised my hand, I put it back down when I saw that they did answer this with the full spectrum that I already mentioned. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you very much, Brother Tariq. We wanted to hear your voice.
No, I just thought that you summarized it very well. Jazakallah.
Allah Akbar.
Okay, I think we are over time by 15 minutes. So I apologize to our Mashayikh for taking more time than we asked for. But we are thankful for your time. As I said, we had an influx of questions coming through. Some of them we tried to cover, some of them maybe left. So I apologize for all of those who we have not been able to cover. But if there are any pressing questions that you still have, please reach out to put in my email address rmalik@bibf.com, and we will reach out to our mashayikh to seek answers, and then inshallah we can come back to you on that. So with that, I have to.
Dr. Rizwan, if you allow me to say, there is a small possibility that myself and Sheikh will come to Bahrain in September. So maybe if there's, as you say, an overwhelming question, maybe we can give a live session in BIBF.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, bismillah. I mean, our audience is quite global as we speak. We had about 400 people registered for the webinar from around the world. So we've got people even hand raised even now from different parts of the world. So I must apologize to for all those who are in different parts of the world in different time frame. Maybe it's also iftar time for some of you. So thank you for sparing your time. May Allah accept the time that you've spent here. May Allah reward you all, and inshallah make it beneficial for all of us, and make it easier for us to deliver, or at least offer this an important pillar of Islam in the right way, inshallah. So with that, I would like to thank you, our Mashayikh, for sparing your time and putting in the effort for putting together this presentation. I know a lot of thoughts have gone into. It's easier to deliver a 6 hours presentation versus a 90-minute presentation. So I can assure you that a lot of effort must have gone into cutting down on a lot of the material. But it has been really, I learned a very, very, very educational session for me personally, and I'm sure for all of our audience who have joined. So I thank you very much. I would also like to thank all our colleagues who have joined for this session. Please continue to follow BIBF platform, and we will bring together, inshallah, these series of events on a monthly basis, all for one purpose, that is to enhance understanding and awareness on key aspects of within the Islamic economics, banking, and finance industry. So if there is anything from the Mashaykh that you would like to conclude on,
forgive us for any shortcomings. We are human beings. We may have mistakes. Forgive us for that.
Jazakumullah khair. And I thank you all very much, inshallah. The session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel for you to refer back, inshallah. So Jazakumullah khair.
Subhanallah.
And see you, inshallah. Take care. Wa akhir da'wana. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.